Welcome back to the show. And like I said, here's our surprise. But first, I'm going to let Nandini go ahead and read his bio.
Okay, so we have in the studio with us today Dr. Love, who is a licensed acupuncture physician, which he's been for 40 years. He is the first non-Chinese Qigong Grand Master and the creator of the Blue Dragon Lifestyle Training Program. So welcome, Dr. Love, to the
Welcome,
Meta
Dr.
Lifestyle.
Love.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with Karina and Nandini.
And just so I can let you know, he's also one of the writers in the magazine. So how lucky am I to have such a fabulous person as one of the writers for the magazine?
Yes, I can talk into the mic.
Oh, yes. Go ahead.
So I've written 12 books,
Wow.
and I wrote one 150-page book this past weekend.
Wow.
So that's coming out, and that's going to be called The Blue Dragon Lifestyle Playbook.
I love it. I love it.
The playbook. So you're going to learn 5 different things in this playbook. The first thing you're going to learn is a sleep ritual that's going to program your dreams, journaling, affirmation, and sex rituals.
Okay, now
Only
we're
if
on.
you're married. And then you're going to learn how to create an exercise regimen, how to create an eating regimen, an emotional balancing sequence, and lastly, how to create a spiritual growth process,
Nice.
which could take 10 years.
Wow.
Well, growth is an ongoing thing. It doesn't end. And I know we live in a world of, supersize me and, instant gratification. But as far as personal development, that's never ending. It doesn't end in this life. It doesn't even end in the other life. This is like literally eternity. It never ends. So the soon as we understand that part, the easier it is to just understand. If he said 10 years, 10 years is really nothing. Think about it.
Nothing. Yeah.
The spiritual life actually starts at 50.
There you
Because
go.
you've got to get out of your child rearing years. You've got to get out of your financial insecurity years. And then you have to have time to devote for yourself so that you can be a better grandparent.
I'm glad you said that. I think I'm because now I'm realizing more and more people is at that age group that it's finally like, okay, I call it the now what, because it's the
Exactly.
we got caught up in life. We had to go to school, we got to have the education, we got to get a job, we got to pay the bills, we got to have the children, and then all of a sudden the kids are gone, or whatever life happens, and now we are all sitting going, now what? And I went through with all my girlfriends, we're all just looking at each other like, what do we do now? We were so focused on outside stuff, the husband, the kids, the family, the parents, and now we're like, what now? And this is when I guess we go in, right? Is that what happens?
That's exactly right. You get a chance to work on yourself. So we all know that we have certain character deficiencies. And now you get to look at yourself without blame, without shame, without guilt. And you can do those little tweaks as you continue to refine your meditation technique and refine your practice. There's no spiritual growth without physical discipline. So you could start with yoga, you could start with Tai Chi, you could start with Blue Dragon Qigong, you could start with swimming, you could start with dancing, but you have to cultivate a physical discipline to get on the spiritual path. The second thing you must do is stop judging yourself and others. You cannot possibly get on the path to spirituality if you're still in judgment. So that's the first lesson, and that might take a couple of months to get out of judgment. But when you're ready, the teacher appears.
So you're pretty much saying this is really something you do need a mentor, a coach, something, because it's so easy to fall back in our old ways. And this is why we call it a lifestyle. A lifestyle means making it a new part of your everyday ongoing life. It's not a, lose weight quick or whatever. This is a lifestyle. This is what you're going to do for the rest of your life.
That's why I call it a training program. So if you wanted to learn how to play the piano, would you only practice once a week? If you wanted to be good at doubles tennis, would you only practice once a week? Anything you want to be good at, you have to practice every single day. So I know a lot of people and they say, oh, I do yoga. And I said, how often do you do yoga? And they're like, oh, I go to class every Saturday. Okay, I'm sorry. You don't even know what yoga is, but that's okay. So we have to start somewhere. And the place that we start, believe it or not, is the breath. Now, I am Chi Love. My name is George, and my friends will call me G. And I lived in a Hindu ashram for about a year, and they all called me Dr. G. But Qi is the word, the basis of Chinese medicine is based on the circulation of Qi. And Qi, as in Qigong, is also based on the circulation of Qi. And since I help people move out of their restrictions, I help people move out of their self-limiting beliefs, their self-destructive behaviors, and their need to always look good. So when I help people break out of the envelope, that's why they call me Dr. Chi Love. So we start with the breath. Most people are guilty of breath holding, and they go,
Right.
and especially when they hear some bad news, they go, Uncle Fred died. The neighbor ran over the cat. And then they restrict the muscles, which means the blood doesn't flow, the oxygen doesn't flow, the nutrients don't flow, and then the blood to the brain is restricted, and then you make poor choices. So we have to start with the breath. And we would all assume you know how to breathe. But I'm here to tell you, you have no clue. So let me ask you, Karina, what is the muscle that helps the lungs breathe?
Oh, now we're going into biology.
It's a test. It's a test.
It's
Nandini,
a test. I want to say the diaphragm.
it is the diaphragm.
Yes.
And the diaphragm pushes the air out of the lungs so the blood can go in. Breathing in is involuntary. You don't even have to think about it. So when the lungs fill with air, the oxygenated blood goes out, but you have to consciously close the diaphragm for the blood to go into the lungs. Now, you can go 40 days without food with no damage to your internal organs. You can go 14 days without water with no damage to your internal organs. But you can only go 4 minutes without air. So where we start with is the breath. Then we go into meditation. Now, everybody says, I don't know how to meditate. I'm not good at meditation. I tried it. It didn't work. And the answer is obviously you didn't work it. So I teach 8 different methods of meditation. And one of those 8 is going to work for you. So you have to take the 8-week course in order to find out which type of meditation works. So there's standing, there's sitting, there's spinning, there's spiraling, there's dancing, there's walking, there's fire, and there's water meditation. So one of those is going to work for you. The third thing is internal exercise. Now that's a concept that acupuncturists and Taoists and Buddhists wrestle with for years and years and years because they don't know how to move the muscles inside their own bodies. So let me give you a clue. When you swallow, you have to chew before you swallow. Yes? So the first meditation is chewing meditation. You have to chew your food 32 times before you swallow. Then it hits the top of the stomach, and then the stomach acid breaks down protease, amylase, and lipase. Then it goes through the pyloric valve into the duodenum, which is the first section of the small intestines. The second section is the jejunum, and the third section is the ileocecal valve, which opens from the small to the large intestine. Then it goes up, across, and down, and then it goes into your sigmoid colon, and then it goes out the anal sphincter. There are 8 ring muscles, which we call sphincters, and I teach you the 3 exercises that you need to know in order to contract and expand the sphincters. And that is internal exercise that not only helps your digestive system, it also helps your reproductive system. So by squeezing and expanding the anal sphincter, men's prostate glands benefits. And by squeezing the abdominals, women's uterus benefit. And the quadratus lumborum, which are the muscles that control the urogenital system, benefit. So I think we should have all learned this when we were 12, 13, 14 years old,
Oh my
don't
goodness.
you?
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes, and yes.
So that was 5-minute anatomy and physiology with Dr. Love.
I love it. I love it. Of course, it's another muscle, but we're going to talk about that one. But you mentioned it earlier, but we're not going to go there. But Nandini had a question.
Dr. Love, before the show, we had a short chat, and you mentioned to me that you studied in Africa, and you studied under a Chinese master, Master Lee.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't mention that you lived in an ashram. And when you said that, I thought, oh my goodness, this is a blend of every wisdom that there is, the Indian, the Chinese, the African, and I know you do some shamanism as well, so you have that, South American influence as well. So it's just a beautiful blend of every healing modality, and they're not different, right? They all intertwine.
So I'm so glad you mentioned that, because if we look at a holograph, so we have the Tibetan, we have the Chinese, we have the Hindu, we have the ancient Egyptian, we've got West African, we've got Caribbean, and the Carib Indians, okay, which obviously are the
Right here.
Right here.
Right here. Right here. All of us.
Trinidad. So what I've done is I've taken the ancient wisdom and blended it into one system, and I just call it Blue Dragon because the dragon represents immortality, and the color blue represents tranquility and peacefulness. So if you want to live a long time, or you want to be immortal, and you study at the Blue Dragon Qigong Academy, you're going to learn the best of all of the ancient wisdom. And that's why they call me the ancient wisdom teacher.
So wonderful, really
That is,
wonderful.
so you were telling us the story about the elevator. You got to share that with the audience.
Okay, so I'm going to a Tai Chi class in the UN, and I get on the wrong elevator, and there's the Dalai Lama by himself. Now, I had just read in the newspaper that there was an attempt on his life, and his brother was killed.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, why does this guy not have a bodyguard? And in the year 1981, who knows the Dalai Lama? So I'm looking at him, and he's like, you have questions, my son? And I was like, yeah, but I'm so frazzled, I can't even think of what to ask. So he said, would you like to learn how to change 3 lifetimes of karma in 30 days? And I'm like, yep, let me get my notebook out and write this down. And he said, be good, be kind, become passionate. And I heard become passionate. So for the next 30 days, you need to quit smoking. You need to drink more water. You need to exercise. And I was very passionate in my advice, so much so that it turned some of my friends off. So long story short, I go to hear the Dalai Lama speak, and then I heard become passionate. So afterwards, I go for the autograph, and I say, do you remember meeting me in the elevator? He said, I do. I said, can you tell me what is compassion? He said, compassion is not lending your friend $500. Compassion is not lending your friend your car. Compassion is not letting your friend move into your spare bedroom. He said, compassion is standing in your power while you hold your friend's hand while they're going through tough times.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Wow.
Did some bells go off? Did some bells go off? Yeah.
Yes.
So he said, what do you do for a living? And I said, I'm a commodities broker on Wall Street. And he kind of frowned and he said, that's not very enlightening. I'm like, no, it's like legalized gambling. He said, is there another career path for you? Now, at this moment, I didn't know that you had to have right livelihood as one of the Buddhist principles. So he said, what did your parents want for you? I said, they wanted me to go to medical school. And he said, is it too late to go to medical school? I'm 31 years old. I don't know. So he said, allow me to introduce you to Dr. Yeshi Dandin, my personal physician. So I went to hear Dr. Yeshi Dandin speak, and he cured 5 people of incurable cancer with acupuncture and herbs. And I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, is cure cancer. So for the next year, I studied with Dr. Yeshi Dandin. And then he got recalled to India to the refugee community. And then I said, okay, what next? What now? And then I read in the paper about Oscar Wexu, who was treating racehorses with acupuncture. So I find out what hotel he's staying at, and I go see him. And he said, you're in luck. I just opened a school in Montreal. You'll be my first student. And I was like, okay then. So I fly to Montreal, sell everything I own, and for the next 3 years, I learned Chinese medicine. Then I come back to New York, and I go to Lincoln Hospital in the Bronx, where they have an acupuncture detox program that is still in existence. So I went to the director. I said, I met you in Montreal at some conference. He says, yeah, I remember you. There's a 6-month waiting list.
Wow.
So I was like, okay. So I just chat him up. 30 minutes later, he says, I just moved you to the top of the list. Can you start on Tuesday? And now, right out of school, my first job is working in a hospital doing acupuncture for drug addicts. And we treated 150 people, 2 of us treated 150 people a day with ear acupuncture for drug addiction. That is intensive training. Now, while I was at Lincoln Hospital, I read this magazine article about this woman named Guo Lin who had a particularly virulent form of uterine cancer. And they sent her home from the hospital to die. And while she was at home, she found these papers that her grandfather had written with these diagrams of these movements. So she decided to do them. 3 months later, she goes back to the hospital and said, remember me? I'm not dead yet. You told me I was going to die in 90 days. And they like, what did you do? So she explained, and they converted that hospital to a Qigong hospital. And there are 10 Qigong hospitals in China right now. So after I read that magazine article, my radar is I gotta find a Qigong master to teach me. And that's when I found Master Li in Chinatown, New York. And for the next 6 years, I apprenticed to him. Then his granddaughter comes from China, and they start whispering in Chinese. Now, I don't speak Chinese, so I'm thinking, handwriting's on the wall, time for me to exit. And that's when I moved to Florida.
Wow, what? I'm going to tell you the best part about that story is that you were willing to say yes. And do you know how many people miss opportunities because they're afraid to just drop everything and move where Source is taking them? Source is saying, I'm putting everything right here in front of you. Go. And well, yeah, but you just gone. That's like the most amazing part of the story, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think Dr. Love was just simply responding to what was in his DNA, his life purpose. He was very awake to that, and that's why I think it would have been very easy for him to say yes to these opportunities. Because, as you were saying to me, Dr. Love, is that you are the third doctor in your family.
I'm the third Dr. Love in my family, yes.
Okay. So, but again, in anything, any dreams, any desires, anything you want, you have to say yes. I even say life is too short to say no. You rather fail, but you got to take the risk and experience something. You can't talk about something you don't know. You can only talk about something you've experienced. So on that note, we're going to go on a very short commercial, and Dr. Love is going to do a little bit of a demonstration for us. So hang in there. The magazine.
Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe to my channel Dr. Karina Felix for more videos.